All right, you cyber fucks. Let's get to business. Hi, hello, thick boys, thick girls. It's good to see you. So I know I'm coming in late on the most recent cyberpunk drama fiasco, and that's partly because I've been sick with the Rona, and partly because I am fucking exhausted of talking about this game and the drama surrounding it. It's exhausting. There is a certain level of like, okay, we get it. Cyber game bad. Like, how many different ways can you say, like, yeah, we were lied to on some level? This game should not have come out in the state that it did on console. I think we can all agree. And even when all of the wheels are turning as they are intended to turn on PC, at least, the game still doesn't really function as it was marketed to us. Last week, the cyberpunk conversation spun up, once again, largely because of two things. The Cat video expose that's like roughly 40 minutes of cuts and edits between cyberpunk devs, in CDPR marketing, and the real in-game examples of exactly how they didn't deliver on their promises. It is absolutely brutal, it's worth watching, and it is a reminder that, once again, our expectations were based largely on misleading marketing. That is just another way to say we were lied to. A white lie is still unfortunately a lie. The other thing that came out was the Jason Schreier Bloomberg article. If you're not familiar with Schreier or his work, this is a games journalist that previously worked over at Kotaku. He does these massive sort of in-depth exposés that get into like studio workplace conditions. He's known for talking about crunch. He does a lot of really insightful pieces on why video games are the way that they are. And so naturally, you knew that he was going to do something on Cyberpunk 2077. It was only a matter of time. I'm not going to go line by line and read his article. If you want to read it, you can. I'll link both the Cat video and Schreier's post in the description so that you can go consume this content. But the SparkNotes version of what Schreier said is that the game was announced in 2012, but wasn't really in development until 2016. He said the Cyberpunk E3 demo was, quote, mostly fake. And lastly, he said that my cat is cracked out right now. He said that the devs knew that the game wasn't ready and were ignored by management, citing the studio's previous success with The Witcher 3. So these are the main points that I want to tackle because there are a lot of people angry about this, and I think some of the criticism is completely valid. And some of it is overblown and unfair because, quite frankly, most gamers don't understand or care about what happens sort of behind the curtain of video game development. If you're watching this, know that you're probably not the demographic that I'm talking about. I'm really talking about like the normies in the IGN comment sections on Facebook. Like, those people don't give a shit. So yeah, let's start from the top. The game was announced in 2012, but didn't really enter development until 2016. From what I understand, this is a fairly common thing in the industry and something that we still see today. The most recent example that I can think of is Bethesda releasing a trailer for The Elder Scrolls 6. There are a lot of people, I think, that see something like that and assume, oh, cool, like we're gonna get Skyrim 2 in a year or two. A simple, like, just a title on a screen could mean anything from, like, this is just a concept on paper, or the game is currently in development, but maybe they're not ready to show actual gameplay. That is not enough information to assume any video game is on the, like, near horizon or is about to come out. When you think about the timing here, it makes sense. CD Projekt Red was still working on The Witcher 3 up until 2016 with the release of the Blood and Wine expansion. And being a relatively small studio, which I think a lot of people forget, like, they're known for one of the best video games of all time being The Witcher 3. And so I think a lot of people just assume that they're on the same scale as a studio like Rockstar or something. And that's not the case. Rockstar is thousands of people. CD Projekt Red, when they made The Witcher, was a team of just a few hundred. And so All of that to say, this news is perhaps not as shocking as I think it seems maybe at first glance. It's still worth noting, and it's still a necessary reminder that this game wasn't in development since 2012. The next point is something I'm more interested in, and it is this idea that the 2018 cyberpunk demo was, as Jason put it, mostly fake. This was the demo that was initially only shown behind closed doors at E3 2018. It was only shown to trade professionals and journalists, and then later posted online for all of us to watch. Turns out that, a lot of what was shown in that gameplay trailer didn't actually make it into the final cut of the game. And of course, a lot of the systems that we saw in that trailer, like enemies having level indicators above their heads, just as one example, just wasn't in the final game, period. There's no way to know how challenging a set of enemies are going to be before you encounter them. Again, the Crowcat video is an incredible example of how many different ways we were misled, and I encourage all of you to go watch that. Here's the truth. Almost anything you see on the show floor at E3 or on stage at E3 should be viewed with a healthy skepticism, because what you are essentially viewing is a tone piece for what the final product is going to be. And it's not always that a studio is intentionally trying to mislead or lie about a game that they're making. That's usually not the case. In fact, it almost never is. That's bad business. More often than not, it's because game development is a process of iteration, of taking things away and adding to. That's how creative process works, generally speaking, regardless of the medium. I think we would be shocked to learn that oftentimes most of the work doesn't usually get done until the very last year or two of development. That's based on reporting that I've seen from Schreier and others that are more in tune with the process of game development than I am. You can imagine then the challenge that this creates for any marketing department. You can't wait until the very last year of development to market your massive AAA game because, for an independent studio like CDPR, you need money. They need investors. They need people to buy their game when it comes out. And so they have to show something, but it needs to be close enough to the final product that people don't go, I'm not going to do that again. You know the noise. But due to the creative nature of game development, being something that's constantly changing again and taking things away and adding things, gamers are probably going to go regardless, all right? Because gamers were a mistake. I don't know if you know this. It's just a goddamn fact. Gamers typically only care, and I'm going to lump myself in this too. I am a gamer.
What is that? Ugh, it's hideous.
Oh, that's not very nice. It's just a
gamer.
Why, God? Why? Gamers typically only care about E3 demos when the game turns out poorly or it doesn't live up to perceived expectations. There is an element of, quote, fakeness to almost any E3 demo you see. I don't know that it was entirely fair of Jason Schreier, as much as I love him, to slap the fake label on the demo when it wasn't fake. Like, people played a working version of that demo at E3 2018. It's just that a lot of those systems were cut or toned down for the final version of the game. Unfortunately, I don't know that there's really a solve for that. It can be mitigated by clear, transparent communication on behalf of the studio about the state of the game prior to launch. I think that's an area where studios could stand to grow in, to be open and honest about how the game has changed since they showed it off. I think that's a fair thing to ask. As much as Project Red lauds themselves as being transparent, I think that's where they fell short the most. The last point, and I think possibly the most egregious out of all of these, is that many of the devs at CDPR knew that the game wasn't ready, but were largely ignored by studio management until the end of 2019. So much so that according to Schreier, a lot of the devs would pass around memes about when the game was actually going to come out. Many of the devs expected the game to come out in 2022. And based on what we got, I mean, I'd have to agree, probably could have used more time in the oven. But I mean, I think the studio was still riding the high of The Witcher 3. And I think most of the studio management thought that they could pull it off. If we're to go off of Schreier's post, we can see by how management actively cited the success of The Witcher 3 that this probably was an attitude that CDPR brass had. This is, I think, maybe one of the most common downfalls of any studio. We saw it with Bungie and the development process of Destiny. We saw it again with BioWare and the release of Andromeda, and then later Anthem. And we saw it again with Bethesda and the release of Fallout 76. I know some of you are going to say we saw it first with Fallout 4. I liked Fallout 4. Fuck you. That doesn't mean that studios can't rebound and reclaim lost goodwill from fans. And in fact, we frequently see redemption arcs with a lot of these stories. But regardless, the issue remains. I think studio leadership frequently gets overconfident based on prior releases, demanding their employees subject themselves to insane amounts of crunch to, quite frankly, pull off the impossible. Sometimes all of the stars align and that crunch was worth it. I put worth it in air quotes because crunch is never worth it. It feels like studios like Naughty Dog and Rockstar have a pretty good track record of releasing successful games under allegedly strained working conditions. But that, A, doesn't justify crunch, and B, is probably because those studios are backed with the financial resources that they are, of Sony in the case of Naughty Dog, and in the case of Rockstar, GTA 5. And look, well, I already know I am going to get some heat from my personal friends because I was admittedly one of those people complaining about all of the delays, but that's not because I was impatient to play the game. I swear to God, I will put my hands on a Bible right now, and I'm gonna go. Hold on, I used to go to church. I got a Bible. I'm gonna find one. Look how it's so tiny. It's so cute. All right, hands on the Bible. I already forgot what I was swearing. I swear, I will wait as long as I need to wait, so long as it means the game is a finished product, period. I was frustrated with all of the delays because it never felt like the studio was being totally transparent about what the state of the game was actually in. It just felt like CD Projekt Red were overconfident about the release window, they overmarketed, and they oversold their vision. Do I think that Cyberpunk 2077 is a bad game? No, I never have. I know that it's a different story on console. When it works right, there are fun moments. There are emotional moments. The story is pretty good, and Night City, again, on PC, is breathtaking.
You're breathtaking.
I don't know that it's fair to say that we were intentionally lied to by CD Projekt Red. I don't think that there was some nefarious scheme to deceive us into buying a broken product. I don't think the studio that made The Witcher 3, at least not the developers, wanted that. But regardless of that, their collective marketing leading up to the release misled our expectations. I don't think all of the blame falls on the leadership at CD Projekt Red. I think most of it does. And I think some of it also falls on games media journalism for hyping up a game that we really didn't see up until the release. So I guess that's where I stand for now. Those are my thoughts, but I'm sure that they won't be the last thoughts that you hear from me about the game. Unfortunately, we are going to be talking about this game for a while. And for what it's worth, I do hope that Cyberpunk 2077 ends up falling into one of those redemption arc stories that I talked about. This is my first time doing anything like this for Dummy Thick. If you like this, it would mean a lot to me if you did all of the things that YouTubers typically ask you to do. If you shared this video with your friends, I would probably smooch your cheek consensually, of course. Thank you for watching, thick boys and thick girls, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya.
You're breathtaking.